paddled through the reeds and the willow trees beyond. Daddy in his good hat, Mama in her favorite dress. Was with pride as I stood there, and that water up to my chest. And the preacher spoke about the cleansing blood. I sank my toes into that East Oklahoma mud. It was down with the old man, and up with the new, raised to walk in the way of life and truth. Didn't see no angels, just a few saints on the shore. But I felt like a newborn baby, cradled up in the arms of the Lord. Amazing grace, oh how sweet the sound. There was glory in the air, there was dinner on the ground. My sins, which were many, were washed away and gone, along with the buffalo nickel. I forgot to leave at home, but that seemed like such a small price to pay for that blessed peace of mind came to me that day. And it was down with the old man and up with the new, raised to walk in the way of life and truth. Didn't see no angels, just a few saints on the shore. But I felt like a newborn baby, cradled up in the arms of the Lord. So this road is long and dusty, sometimes the soul needs to be cleansed. And I love and I long to feel that water rushing over me again. It was down with the old man and up with the new, raised to walk in the way of life and truth. Didn't see no angels, just a few saints on the shore. I felt like a newborn baby, cradled up in the arms of the Lord. You know, I felt like a newborn baby, cradled up in the arms of the Lord.
Time we'll dismiss our children back to Children's Junior Church. Kids, go ahead and go on back. How many of you guys, as he was singing that song, you were thinking back to the time that you were baptized? You remember in those days? I sure was. How wonderful it is to know that the words of the song are true, down with the old man, up with the new. That's what baptism signifies. to know that I'm a new creation made in Christ. It's wonderful, amen? If you have your Bibles, go ahead and go to Proverbs chapter 15. And we are going to look at a few verses this morning, verses 1 through 4. And as we look at these verses, we're really talking about one idea, 1.1 thing, and that is our words. Do our words glorify God? Do the speeches that we make, the sentences that we write, everything that comes from our mouth in the form of words, from our hands in the form of words, whatever, is it glorifying God? Words, they're such a powerful thing. Think about it for just a moment. One word said in the right way, in the right context, with the right amount of affection behind it, one word can build you up, right? I mean, it can make you feel just so happy, so good. It can really set your feet just flying, thinking, man, this person cares for me. But at the same time, one word said in a completely opposite context, with a lot of anger and hatred behind it, one word can tear you down. One word can rip apart all the things that you thought were good about yourself. Words can give us courage. There are many famous speeches that we can look at over history. We can go to Churchill in World War II. We can look all throughout history and find famous speeches that were given that gave men and women power and courage to fight, to take up arms, to change their way of life, even going back to earlier times here. Martin Luther King Jr. and things like that, and seeing all these things that have taken place. And looking at some of these things that have happened, it ought to show us that there are power in words. Power in words. And each one of us here, we need to know that there's power in the words we say, power in the words that other people say, and realize that words are important. So much so that old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. See how false that really is, right? How fake it is. Some person can say a sentence to you and you can hold on to it and remember it for the rest of your life. I remember looking back in my own childhood, and there are certain people that I can think of, and things that they had said to me that were uplifting, that built me up. Things that they said to me that were kind of affirming thoughts that I thought I knew what God wanted in my life, and people said and spoke things into my life and really put me on the path of where I'm at today as far as being a pastor and being able to speak here before you guys. And I remember those words. Man, they were uplifting. But at the same time, there are some scars in my past from people that have torn me down, that said things that, man, just really hit my heart and just put a hole there. And it stayed. Words, they stick around so much more than anything else. You know, we might have scars on our body, but you look at that scar and you're reminded of how bad it hurt at the time, but it doesn't really hurt anymore. It's just a scar. Words, when you start to think about it, a lot of those same old emotions and feelings, they come back because you're picturing it over and over again. There's power in words, and there's power in spoken words, actually getting them out there. And we have to know there's power by looking just at first the origin of words, and that comes from God. Just look at God for a moment. God spoke the world into existence. He spoke it. He said, let there be light, and there was light. He spoke creation, everything that we see here, into existence with His words. There's power in words. In shaping God's people, looking back into the Old Testament and looking at the children of Israel, God did an amazing thing bringing the people of Israel out of Egypt and saving them, rescuing them. But then He wanted to shape them. He wanted them to be a people that was holy, a people that was set apart, a people that would seek after Him. And so in doing so, He spoke the 10 Commandments into existence. In doing so, we get to see the 10 Commandments were brought, and we still look at them today as being things that we need to be doing with our own life, holding to these commandments that God had put out there. And ultimately, God showed us the power of words by bringing the Word. The Word made flesh, as John 1:1 says. The Word made flesh come down to be with us, to dwell among us, and to give us the Word of God in flesh, to speak into our lives and to change us. And we get to see, no doubt, there was a huge impact by that life that was lived in the power of words. Lucky for us, I think it's amazing that God did not leave us ignorant on how we should use our words, how we should speak, how we should allow ourselves to be transformed by not letting our words hold us back, not letting our words stand alone, but transform to the new. Before I break into Proverbs 15, how many of you guys like Chinese food? Anybody here? Come on. Man, Chinese food, isn't wonderful, isn't it? It's amazing. Sometimes it makes me want to move to China, but then I know they don't eat the Chinese food that we have here. But every time I go eat Chinese food, they always give you this little bitty cookie, right? You know, and I hate those cookies. They're nasty. They're just sugary. I don't like them. Sarah eat 30 of them if she can. I do not like those cookies. But inside that cookie is the greatest thing you get after the meal, right? It's your fortune. And you open up the fortune, and you look at it, and you're thinking, it's going to be wonderful and great. And you read it. And it's not a fortune at all, is it? It's not really telling me a great insight or some deep thing about what's going to happen in my life. No, it gives you a suggestion, kind of, an idea. And what it is an idea of how to move your life forward. That's what those fortune cookies are. But that's what those fortune cookies are. They're an idea of how to move your life forward. And if we follow what those fortunes say, then our lives begin to move forward in that way. And what it is basically like this. If you live your life in a good way, then you're going to have good things that come to you. And you're like, well, duh, that happens all the time. But looking at this also...
No, you hit the button on the side.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Hey, Dwayne, I might have broke my mic.
What about the button on the side?
Hey, you can hear me now, right?
No.
Check. I hear.
What about the button on the side that changes no, I can't think what you call it.
I'll just yell loud. You can hear me. I'll yell really loud. Hey, turn up number 3 a little bit, Dwayne. So I can hear it right here. You guys hear that? Hear me now? Sarah will give me a new mic. She'll bring it out. Look at Proverbs 15, though. Proverbs is also a huge book that is filled with the ideas of how to move your life forward, but they're ideas of God, how to move your life forward. It's ideas and words of wisdom that if we adhere to these words, our lives will move forward and we'll grow closer to God and closer to the men and women that He wants us to be. That's the whole point of what Proverbs is about. Words of wisdom to move us forward. And so let's go ahead and let's look at Proverbs chapter 15, verses 1 through 4. Can you hear me now? Check. Yeah? Check. Please. All right, Proverbs 15, 1 through 4 says this. Verse 1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. As soon as you read that, you could automatically see that being in your fortune cookie, right? It's right there, and it's words to move your life forward. But this is so much more. This is truth and words of wisdom that if we apply these to our lives, it can drastically change everything that happens in our lives and the conversations that we have. When people come against us in conversation and controversy, the way we respond has a direct correlation to how they're going to respond back, to the way it's going to continue to go. The natural thing in our body, anytime somebody comes up against us that is angry, that is upset, anytime something like that happens and they come up and they start speaking negatively to us, a natural defense of our body is to tense up. It's natural. Every one of us do it, and that's a defense mechanism, is to tense up. In the same way, when someone starts speaking negatively to us, most of the time, if we're not really focused, if we're not really trying to be in the Spirit of God and to seek what is best for the situation, if we allow our emotions and anger to get the best of us, a lot of times if someone speaks negatively into our life, we stop listening to what they're saying. And we start immediately in those moments speaking and thinking, what can I say back? Getting our next sentence ready as to how I can respond and what I can do back. And if we start doing these things, it's our defenses that are setting up walls that if we continue in that way, we're going to have a huge conflict that breaks out because of the way that we're speaking here. Proverbs says very gently, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And so, number one, looking at Proverbs, if we want to use our words and use them well, we need to learn to speak gently. Learn to speak in a different way than maybe what is a natural thing to us. Because it's natural to get angry. It's natural to get upset. But learn to speak gently. If we look at most conversations that happen between junior high, high school kids, girls, boys, whatever. One of the things that happens whenever someone gets upset and mad, and maybe they don't get their way, the first thing that starts to take place is slander, right? Just start putting someone down for who they are, maybe what they think, what they're like. We find this, like I said, in a lot of high school and junior high things. We also find this a lot in politicians and stuff like that. It's the same thing. And if that doesn't work, if that slander doesn't work, the next thing we go to is violence. And that violence doesn't have to be with our fists, but it can be with our words, with our mouths. The same thing can be true within our own relationships here. Maybe it's husband and wife. Maybe it's even with our children, with our mom, with our dad. The same thing can be true in the same way. If we don't get what we want, we start looking for ways to make it happen. And that violence that could be there could be coming from our words. And if we do that, we add to whatever is going on in the conversation. If someone comes against us, and we're just upset, we want to prove our point. So we start proving our point by getting louder and louder and louder. And we add to whatever's going on in the conversation with violence. We're adding that fuel to the fire. And our natural reaction then is to retaliate, to fight fire with fire. And either way, we just want to defend ourselves. We just want to defend ourselves and do whatever we can. As I was thinking about this verse and thinking about really what it means to try to change the natural instinct of our lives, I started thinking back to a time whenever I was hauling hay with my dad. And we were putting hay up in this loft in a barn. And the way you had to put the hay up to, you had to get a conveyor belt, and you laid the conveyor belt from your truck all the way up to the big hole in the barn, and you push your hay up to it. Well, one guy could stay down and load the conveyor belt, but the other guy always had to get up in the barn into that loft. And man, it's hot up there, there's not a lot of airflow, and there's not a lot of sun, it's dark, and it's a perfect place for wasps and yellow jackets and things like that to want to hang out. I remember one day we were up there, and I was the guy that always got to load the conveyor belt, because I was little and stuff like that, and Dad would brave the heat and stuff, and he'd go up there. And he was in the loft, and he's putting hay, stacking it up. And I remember looking up at it, and he's just swinging. Just takes his hat off, and he's just going crazy, swinging all over the place. And he said, because I just kept loading hay, I just kept throwing it up to him. He had like 4 or 5 bales just stacked up. So he finally yelled at him, he said to quit. And I said, what's going on? He said, I'm swatting wasps. Well, finally, he just bailed out of there. He couldn't stand it anymore. He climbed down the conveyor belt, got to the bottom. I said, what happened? He said, I saw one wasp on a nest, and I decided I would kill it and not have to worry about it anymore. He said, as soon as I hit that nest, about 30 other wasps came flying out of there, and the fight was on. And I got to thinking about that, putting it back to this verse. A lot of times we might see a small little thing in a conversation. We want to fight, we want to defend ourselves. And depending on how we do it, if we do it with a harsh word, if we do it out of anger, if we're not really doing it in love and in the Spirit of God, then that small little thing that was there, it can turn into a huge fight really quick, really fast, and we might not even really have been prepared or ready for that. Not anything we ever wanted, but it happens. This is, I believe, where Proverbs 15:1 is going, to speak gently, even in the face of harsh words against you. Even in the face of controversy against you, speak gently. A modern-day preacher, he said this: if we practice an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, soon the whole world will be blind and toothless. The way of wisdom and contrast offers a different course. In Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, we hear him say, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Jesus calls us not to retaliate, not to use words as weapons. Rather, God desires our words to bring about unity, not discord. A gentle word can turn away wrath. And so looking at this, the next time we have an argument come against us, the next time something comes up that maybe we're just upset about, whether it's something at work or whatever, remember that a gentle word can calm whatever could be brewing. Whatever's getting ready to really just set this thing on fire and a fight happen, a gentle word can set it down, can calm. But Proverbs also isn't just interested in the way that we speak, the gentleness. It's also interested in the words that we say. And so if we look at Proverbs 15:2, it talks to this more. It says, the tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. And so number two, looking at how we can use our words. We have to speak gently, but we also have to speak truth in love. We have to speak the truth. We cannot waver from that truth. The truth has to be known, but it has to be spoken in love. Truth in love. 15:1, it talks about more of the tone of our words, speaking gently and softly. But now we're also called to make sure that our words have substance. That there's something there that really can calm the fire because there's truth in it. There's love in it. We're called to be discerning people. To really think of what is best for the situation. And so think about that. Whenever hard things come, whenever controversy happens in your life, we need to think of a couple things. We need to know what is good to say. What is good not to say. Right? Basic understanding of conversation. What will point people to Jesus? And that's one that maybe a lot of times we forget. Especially in the heat of a moment, in an argument, whatever it might be, with a loved one, coworker, whatever. What's going to point this person back to Jesus? Is that really on our mind? It should be. Always should be. When is it best to say something? When is it best not to say anything at all? Sometimes the best thing that we can do is to just keep our mouths silent and shut. Many people would look at this, and many Christians, I believe, would say, I read the Word of God, I go to church, I pray. And in doing so, I know that I'm speaking everything out of love, and I know I have truth on my side because I'm in the Word of God, and I'm praying, I'm going to church. But many people can be turned away from us who think that we are speaking in love if we're not really speaking in the will of God. We're not really speaking in the will of God. It's not just enough that we are in church and we're praying and we have the Word of God. We're not going to use those things and then say, so I must be right. We have to be speaking in the will of God, to speak truth in love. And so looking at this, I was kind of thinking again, school's starting up, right? And we have a lot of kids that are going to high school and things like that, trying to figure out, what they're going to be doing, for the next few years to get prepared for college. And then kids are also going to college. We have River who's going to military right now, figuring out what he's doing with the rest of his life. But really, I think of those kids that are going to college. Because in high school, it's more or less, we're figuring out kind of who we are. But college is really figuring out who we want to be, who we're going to be for the rest of our life. Our degree that we're going to have, our career that we're getting ready to set ourselves up on, many times the person that we're going to marry. It all happens, it seems like, in college. But I want you to think a little bit about what college does. College offers a place of higher education, right? Where we dive deep into a specific area of study and we learn. A lot of papers are written. Man, a lot of sleepless nights are given. A lot of tests, a lot of essays, all these things that take place. And then finally, when it's all said and done, you get this wonderful thing handed to you. It's a piece of paper and it's a degree that said you did it. You completed it. You've done the work. Here you go. But I think all of us here, we can agree that just because someone has all this knowledge and a degree does not necessarily mean they automatically have wisdom. It doesn't necessarily mean we automatically have wisdom. And Proverbs here is talking about being wise. Being wise. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge. Wisdom has to be a very important part of our lives as Christians. It's not just enough that we have knowledge, but we know how to use it. The wise has an understanding of seeking what knowledge is and how to apply it into practice, how to apply it into everyday life. Many of us have a pretty good understanding of how to drive a car, how to drive a truck, how to drive a stick, and all these things, right? But there's a difference in the way people drive. All of us here, we have the understanding of what to do. You get in the car, you turn it on, you go down the road, right? Put it in drive, you're going. You know where the brake is, you know where the gas pedal is, you know where the turning light signals are. You know how to operate your car. And all of us here can operate a car pretty much just like the next person. But there's a difference in how you put that into practice. Some people, they see that speed limit sign and they say, okay, I'm keeping that mark. 55. The speedometer is 55. They set the cruise control. We're done, right? Always looking around, making sure nobody's getting up behind them, being very defensive. Other people, instead of being defensive, we call them the offensive driver. Man, they're out there doing whatever they want. 55, that's a suggestion. Let's just see what we can do. Pushing the limits, cutting in and out of traffic. I was driving the other day in Wagner over here, and there's a little motorcycle behind me. You know, motorcycle, 2 wheels. I always thought I wanted a motorcycle. After I watch how they drive, I don't think I do. I'll kill myself. But I was watching this guy who's driving on his motorcycle, and we're in the middle of town, and stoplights are everywhere. There's semi-trucks going, and he's just weaving in and out of traffic. One time he couldn't make his way. He hit the side of the road just to get around the semi-truck. I remember thinking, man, this guy, I'm going to find him up the road here in just a second. He's going to be flipped off his bike. What it is, there's a difference in how we approach driving. There's not a difference in the knowledge of how to drive. There's not a difference in that. It's all the same. But it's how we apply it, how we approach it, and how we use it. That's where the difference comes in. And I think the same is true in our conversations. With our words. Yeah, we're in the Word of God. We're praying, we're reading. But are we really in the will of God? Are we resting in Him? We have the knowledge. Are we applying it? Unless we truly concentrate on the conversation, unless we truly think about the eternal consequences that our words can have, we can be just like that motorist that, though we want to do the speed limit, our foot just keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and we don't realize it until something bad happens, until disaster happens. By the way, it doesn't look good. In our conversations, we have to remember we will be in the will of God. Never. We rest in Him. And at times, it might mean we need to just be silent because our emotions and anger are starting to well up. We need to be silent. Luke 12:12 says this, "For the Holy Spirit will teach you at the time what you should say." And that's what we need to rest in. We're resting in the Spirit of God, no matter what circumstances we're in, how angry we get, how frustrating things can seem. If we're in the will of God, the Holy Spirit's going to take over. And the Holy Spirit is not going to lead us down the wrong path. It's not going to cause horrible conflict. The Holy Spirit is going to set things right. We need to rest upon that. We're definitely called to speak truth to a hurting world, but it's always got to be in harmony with God. Always has to be in harmony with God and His character and nature, which is love. Now there's a problem, I think, many times that happens. Many times I think we as people, we start thinking that if we lose the argument, if we lose the conversation, if people believe that the opposing side is somehow right about what they're saying, then somehow we must be wrong. Somehow we must then not actually have truth on our side, and truth is covered by lies. And so we think it's our obligation and our duty to make sure we put that out there. But I want you to see what verse 3 says. Verse 3 says in Proverbs, "The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good." I think we need to remember then that God sees all. We need to trust that He's going to work it out for His good. God sees all. He knows everything that happens. Nothing is blind to Him. Every situation of life, He is there and He knows. He knows what is coming up against you. He knows what is true. The Apostle Paul put it this way: "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body, the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. And so we say, thanks be to God." Remember that even in the face of controversy, God is with us always. And He's always going to work things out if we rest in Him, if we hold on to Him, no matter what it's going to be on the outside of what people might appear to believe. God is going to work things out in the way that He wants. God sees both our actions and their actions. And so when we look at this passage, we need to remember that God is always prepared and looking. Do what is right in the eyes of God and rest that He will take care of everything. He's going to put it in place and do what's right. However, it's also kind of a warning to us. If we do what's wrong, if we allow our emotions to get the best of us, and we say words that we wish we wouldn't have said, that we could pull back, we regret, if we allow those things to happen, it's also true that God is going to punish us. Because He sees everything, and He knows. If we rest in Him and trust in Him, we have faith that He's going to work it out for His glory. But if we get out of line, He's also right there. He's going to have to pull us back in. But then verse 4 says this: "The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit." When we get out of this verse, And our fourth thing of how our words are powerful, what they show, is that our words reflect our heart. The words that come out of our mouth are actually an extension of what's happening deep down in our hearts. Man, for some, that's a comfort. For others, it might sound scary. So maybe the words that come out of your mouth aren't always wholesome. Maybe they're not always in tune with God. It's really showing that our heart is needing to draw close to God. Our heart is needing to seek after Him. Think about this again. Jesus, the very Word of God, He came to reveal the truth to this world. And He did so by living that perfect life on this earth. And then He went to the cross and He died. Because people rejected Him. They rejected the Word that was truth. And He went to the cross and died, knowing God would work things out for His glory. And God did. On the third day, Christ rose again. Defeated the power of sin, the power of the grave. And He showed that He is the Son of God, allowing for us to have salvation. God worked things out for His glory. It seemed bad at the time, but God knew what He was doing. When we receive salvation through the Word of God, which is Jesus Christ, our hearts cannot help but overflow with words of praise. Amen? It just can't help. God is doing all this. What this verse is talking about here is allowing our words to be a part of that tree of life. Allowing our words to speak life into other people. That only happens if our heart is reflecting Jesus Christ. If our heart is not in tune with Jesus, if we don't have Jesus in our life, we don't really know Him, and we aren't living for Him, our words aren't going to reflect that true life. Our words are going to crush the Spirit, crush our own and crush others, because we aren't living with Christ. Our lives transformed by God's grace, and by God's truth, should also transform our words. And so if you're with me today and you're thinking, there are times that I'm struggling. Anger gets the best of me, and words slip out that I wish I would have never said. What it really shows is a deeper issue that you need to allow God to have full access to your life, full control of your heart, and allow Him to transform you, to draw closer to God, and then your words will be taken care of. Draw closer to Him. Let us not be those who crush the Spirit, but let our words be sweet to those around us. Let our words bring life to this dying world. The way that we speak normally in anger, under stress, even jokingly during confrontation, it all reflects the nature of our heart. We need to be right with God by being in tune with the Spirit of God. And He'll transform our words to bring glory back to Him. Now, that all goes to show again there's tremendous power in words, because if our words can bring glory back to God, our words have potential to point somebody who is going on a negative path down in life, somebody that was on a pathway to hell. Our words have the power, have the ability, spoken in the truth of God and in love and gentleness, all reflecting Jesus in our heart. Our words have the ability to point people away from that path and to set them on the path to Jesus Christ. There's power in our words if we use them effectively, if we realize how important it is that this is so much greater than the moment at hand. Our words have eternal consequences. With the gentle whisper, we can calm a child. In an era of judgment, we can tear apart someone we think is wrong. Our words have power. Let us use them to the best of our abilities for the kingdom of God. I want you to think again. The old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And realize the lie. Words can hurt, but so much more, words can build up. And I want you to think with me right now of all the words in the world right now that are bringing hurt to people, that are pushing people away, that are tearing people down, that are causing people pain and sorrow, and look and say, is there anybody that is doing the opposite? And that should be us. That should be us. We should be the opposite, that is building people up, pointing people to Jesus, not tearing them down, but showing them grace and mercy. Words have a lasting impact, and we should choose our words carefully with eternity in mind. For I think this is what God did for us. He brought His living word to us with eternity in mind so that we could have eternal life. My daughter yesterday, she got to spend the whole day with me, and Sarah had to go to Sarah and Emma went with her mother to the Little Mermaid that was happening at the PAC, so I got to keep at it. We had a wonderful day, man. It was happy, it was joy-filled. She didn't cry hardly any at all. It was just a great day. But then nighttime came, and Mom got home. Let me tell you, she just wanted Mom. She didn't want me anymore. She didn't want anything to do with it. She just wanted Mom. And so we get in bed, and because Mom had been away for so long, we decided, well, we'll just put the girls to bed with us, and then we'll put them up whenever they go to sleep, so we could actually hang out with them. So we're putting them in bed, and Emma was laying with Sarah, and Abby just gets jealous. She just gets so mad. And she just starts crying. And I mean, not a small cry. I mean, she's like just a fit, you know, just screaming at the top of her lungs. Her face is red. You know, one of those cries that you think, man, if she doesn't stop, she's going to lose her breath. She's going to be able to breathe. That kind of cry, you know. And she's just getting as hard as she can. And I take her, and I tried to hold her. And I'm trying to speak to her, and I'm trying to care for her. And she just didn't want anything to do with me. And then Sarah took her. And Sarah speaks as a mom speaks, as gently as she can, and softly as she can. And that little girl who was just crying like crazy, she just stopped. In those moments, just stopped. I want you to think about that. At times, whenever it seems like controversy is against us, instead of looking at it as the anger that could be, look at it as somebody who is desperate for something different, who is desperate for love, who is desperate for truth, who is desperate for a need in this world that they don't know what it is. And point them to Jesus, with the gentleness and love that we can as Christians. Point them to Christ. And that crying that is going to be taking place through that anger, that hate-filled speech, it's going to cease. It's going to calm. And God has the opportunity then to take over in their life. But it all depends upon our willingness to speak in gentle truth and love. Not get angry, not get upset, not fly off the handle, but to allow God to lead in our lives. Every head bowed, every head closed.